Over the next 8 minutes, I plan to transform your relationship with listening. Why listening? Well, I think that listening is a very important social art form, and it's one that I have personally felt like I lost touch with over the last 10 years. I have a sneaking suspicion that you have felt the same way too. Let's talk about what is listening. Listening can be defined as making meaning from sound. It's a pretty generic definition. But I think in terms of today, listening can be defined as actually hearing someone for long enough to interpret and understand the message that they're trying to give to you. So why is listening important? Well, I would tell you that listening is how your friends, your family, your coworkers, and basically the whole world communicate with you. 9 seconds. This is a really interesting number because the average attention span of most Americans today is 9 seconds. And you know what the startling factor is? Is that that is actually shorter than the attention span of a goldfish. Another statistic is that in this country, Pew Research told us in 2014 that 90% of all Americans have a cell phone, and 64% of those cell phones are actually smartphones, which give us access to the internet and our emails at any given moment. And if that isn't convincing enough, let's talk about this number. Just recently, this summer, a study was released that where 6,000 children were surveyed in 8 different countries, and 32% of them said in this survey that they felt unimportant when their parents used their cell phones. A full 54% of them said that their parents just simply used their cell phones way too much. I don't know if you've been around a lot of kids, but I have from time to time, and they don't have filters when they talk about what their needs are. I think kids speak the truth, and I bet when you look at these numbers, you have often felt this way about other adults as well. So Suzanne Jones in the International Journal of Listening told us what it takes to be a good listener. And so to be a good listener, the first thing you have to do is you have to be willing to interpret the message that someone is giving you. And then once you're willing to do that, you have to be motivated to continue to listen to them. And then you have to be willing to interact and give feedback during the listening event. So I would ask you, if our attention spans are only 9 seconds, or the average attention span is 9 seconds, and 90% of us are distracted most of the time by our cell phones, is there a really good chance that we're not listening to each other anymore? Is there a good chance that you personally or me personally have a relationship that is suffering because we are so distracted by technology that we're unable to really listen? So technology and attention span are not the only things that are getting in our way of listening. And there's something a little more subtle, and it's something called a filter. So filters are what we use personally to determine what it is that we want to listen to. And so an example of filters that I learned from Julian Treasure on a TED Talk is culture. It could be language. It could be expectations. It could be attitudes that I have about a certain topic. And these are personal filters that I may use to determine if I'm going to listen to someone or not. So a great example to put filters into perspective is men versus women. So different genders, filter information in different ways. And so when two partners are trying to communicate, they have to acknowledge their gender or their male and female typical filters and try to give some compassion around that to become better listeners. That's a great example of a filter for you. So we've got technology working against us, we have attention span working against us, and we have our own personal filters working against us when we're trying to listen to each other. But then we have this other thing out there that's working against us, and it's multitasking. So when you look at multitasking, there's 2 different ways to look at it, and there are low-level tasks and high-level tasks. So really quickly, let me tell you that low-level tasks are generally not affected by multitasking. And an example of that might be warming up in the microwave your TV dinner, the same one you've had for the last 6 months, while you're talking on the phone to your mom. there's a really good chance that both of those tasks are going to get completed. Your mother's going to feel listened to, and your microwave dinner is probably not going to get burned. But when we move into those higher level tasks, we're dealing with a theory that's called the cognitive bottleneck theory. And the reason why this is important with multitasking is that we learn when people are using their language faculty at the same time and trying to multitask with two different events. There is a study published that says we see a marked and substantial reduction in the information that you were able to acquire during those scenarios. So while this seems innocuous enough, the cognitive bottleneck theory really teaches us that we can't use our language faculties at the same time. And let me give you a great example. If you're at work and you are on a conference call and you decide to make a post on Facebook, during the time that you are making that post on Facebook and using your language facility to actually write something, you are absolutely missing the information on the conference call. I have a sneaking suspicion that you've probably had that happen to you before while you've taken a text, perhaps at dinner, or had some other interruption while you were attempting to listen to someone. The cognitive bottleneck theory truly suggests that we are missing out when we are not solely focused on our listening capabilities. So one more thing that I want to bring out there, because I have a feeling there are folks in the audience saying, "Hey Lisa, I got this, it's not a problem. I have been practicing multitasking for years and I am a pro." Well, there was a study published in American Scientist that really might freak you out about your multitasking abilities. And it says this, that chronic multitaskers consistently were more susceptible to interference from irrelevant stimuli. So what does that say in English? What I think it says in English is that the more that you multitask, the more addicted you are to multitasking, and therefore the more likely you are to be distracted simply by the need to multitask. I don't know about you, but that's not a good ending in my book, to actually be addicted to and needing to multitask. And like I've said before, I bet you've witnessed this in people around you, and this research probably holds true in your own mind. If I have done a good job today, I have mentioned to you that technology interferes with listening. Your shortened attention span due to technology is interfering with your listening abilities. Your own personal filters have an effect on your listening. And then multitasking is really detrimental to your listening. So if I've done a good job, hopefully I can close by saying to you that here are some things that you can do to become a better listener. I think that you need to genuinely ask the people around you if they feel respected and feel listened to by you. You may be amazed at what you find. Making time for technology-free chunks of the day, and maybe even defining technology-free zones would be a good idea for your family. And then finally, making time to meditate, sit in silence, and also making connecting with others a priority. I invite each of you to stop what you are doing, to look at the people in your lives, and to really listen to them. Thank you.